Welcome to Beyond the Huddle, a Central Arkansas FCA podcast where faith meets competition. Join host Josh Adair and Zach Rose as they dive into real stories from athletes, coaches, and leaders making an eternal impact through sports. Each episode brings powerful conversations on faith, leadership, and living boldly for Christ in every field of play and walk of life. This is Beyond the Huddle.
Well, welcome to Beyond the Huddle, the Central Arkansas FCA podcast where faith meets competition. I'm your host, Zach Rose. Josh Adair, he's on vacation this week, so he's enjoying some time with family, so he's not here, unfortunately. It's so sad whenever Josh isn't here, but we do have a much greater guest in here than Josh. Don't tell him I said that, but Mr. Ryan Lageness is in here, and super excited. He's on staff in Conway, serving with the UCA men's football team, and we're super excited having him in here. I'm really stoked to just kind of get to dive into all that you do with the football team and kind of your upbringing, how you developed as an athlete, and then stepping into this role full time. So we're not going to waste any time. We're just going to jump into it. So Ryan, introduce yourself, tell us a little bit about yourself, and we'll kind of run from there.
Yeah, you gave my name. Most people don't call me that. Most people call me Laj. That's kind of always been. So for me, kind of background, like I ended up in Arkansas kind of my 8th, 9th grade year. I grew up in Miami originally, and didn't grow up knowing Jesus, not following him. I'd like to term it as I grew up heathen, and really grew up that way until my senior year of high school. And it was I think it was the game of football that kind of God used to transform my life. It was something that I wasn't great at, but I was decent at, decent enough to, I walked on at UCA. I had a couple other smaller D2. So this was back in the day when UCA was still D2. And so I had a couple other D2 conversations or offers that weren't as appealing to me. And so when I walked to UCA, when I walked on UCA's campus, it was like I didn't know how to term it at the time because I wasn't following Jesus, but it felt like home. It felt like in looking back now, it's because it's where God had me.
Yeah.
And so I didn't come to Christ until really as I was walking out of high school, And for me, it was the end of April of my senior year. And so what happened and kind of the journey in that, it was kind of I had tried everything else in my life. I come from a divorced family. I come from a lineage of alcoholics and people committed to committing adultery, to struggling with narcotics. And so growing up, I never knew what I wanted to be. I just mostly knew what I didn't want to be. And I have a lot of love for my family, but it's not what I wanted to do. It's not what I wanted to have. And so, but what was happening was I found myself becoming what I didn't want to be. And so I tried to find affirmation and purpose and even in stuff that I think is a good thing. I think football is not a bad thing, but eventually it would get to where it was all I really cared about. And so I had a handful of people investing in me, calling me to go to church, some teammates, and then a couple of the coaches. I graduated from Jacksonville High School before they were the Titans, when they were still the Red Devils. And there was one guy specifically that they invited. When I started going to church, I was watching, and this guy, his name was Al Morris. He's since passed, and he literally transformed my life because he not only walked out what he was talking about. He led our Sunday school class that I ended up going to, and like he essentially hired me just so he can spend some time with me. He hired me to work on a house that he was building himself. He was doing a lot of the work. And so he took his own resources and time and effort and invested it into me, to the point where like looking back, he didn't have to, but he was just being obedient to the Lord in that. And so transformed my life. He not only preached the word of God, but he walked it out. And that's where I was. Like I was just like I went to church with them for a long time. I watched and I listened to what they said because I didn't know anything. And for me, I'm a more of a observation person than I am a talk about it person. I'm more of a do it person than I am talk about it. And so that's what happened. And my senior year, I gave my life to Christ. And then I went to UCA, and then I got plugged into a ministry there that was very influential in my life. And even to the point where I would work with them. I would be on staff for ended up being like 12 years until I transferred over to UCA, maybe 13 years until I transferred over to FCA. And the transfer to FCA was I had been the chaplain for the football team. This would be I'm going into my 15th year of that role. And so it was what I always did anyways. And there was really no separation from what I did. And even in my years of working with the ministry, like I was like Ryan Webb and I partnered. We worked side by side and hand in hand in a lot of different things. And so it really just came down to like it was a better fit for what I feel like God had called me to do. And so that was a little bit my story into FCA. Before I got into ministry, and even football, I didn't finish my career at UCA playing football. And we'll get to kind of a little bit of the full circle of this, I think, by the end of this conversation. I went on a trip, summer trip, overseas, and I was there. It was in Morocco, and I was in the Atlas Mountains. We went on a trek into different villages. And I just really clearly felt like the Lord calling me of like, when you're going to make me the Lord of your life and not the game of football. And so when I got back to Conway, I did the hardest thing that it's still probably in the top 3 hardest things I've ever done. And I went back and I went and told my offensive line coach I was done playing. And it didn't make sense, and he was not happy about it. Actually, we'll see. He's now the tight ends coach at Florida State. So when we make the trip down this year with UCA, we'll get to see each other and talk about it for sure. But it was but he understood because he was a believer. He didn't agree with it, but he understood. And so now it's kind of full circle to where I didn't have anybody like me around that was like kind of trying to guide me through the game of football and the life of football and my journey in faith. I had people that were kind of along the faith journey, but they weren't necessarily promoting the football side of it. And so for me, it's now I'm walking side by side with men in their journey of faith, but also in how can they be successful in this game of football. And trying to marry the two, because I tell the guys all the time, football athletics is just a platform. And anything that we do, whether it's vocation, career, whatever, it's all just a platform to be able to fulfill what God's called us to do. And that's to know him and to make him known. And so that's a bit of kind of what got me into FCA. And
Yeah. So you transition. What was the difference like from, I'm going to go way back here, from Miami to Arkansas? Was that like a big culture shift for you when you moved here? And what age did you move to Arkansas then?
Yeah, it was. So there was a lot of culture shifts in there. so it's like, do I tell this part or not tell this part? I don't know. So I went from the thing was I actually went from Miami to Belize, Central America.
Okay.
My mom's fourth husband was from Belize, and we ended up going there because he was trying to clean up his past.
Mm.
And so me and my little sister and my mom moved to Belize. And when we got there, it's kind of, we were there for 10 months. And in that 10-month journey, it was a realizing this guy wasn't who he said he was. And there were a lot of times that there were some disagreements, which I was, at that time I was 13 and I was a bit of a knucklehead. But also, like I said, there was a history of substances that were a struggle in my family. And so always compounded stuff and led to stuff. And so we actually ended up leaving in the middle of the night one night, and we ended up back in Florida, which my grandmother's gone on now, but she was the backbone of our family. Like she was always there to bail everybody out of trouble, and so she bailed my mom out of trouble, and we ended up moving to Sarasota, Florida. So that's just south of Tampa. And then soon after that guy got into a fight with his brother and ended up killing his brother with a machete. And so it was kind of like you look back and you're like, man, thank you, Lord, because of what could have been.
Yeah.
And so then I ended up, what got me to Arkansas, in full transparency, was I got arrested a couple times. And my dad was in the Air Force. And so that's what got me to Jacksonville. He was actually stationed here in Arkansas. And my mom's like, you're going to go live with your dad because essentially I can't control you anymore.
Yeah.
And so at 14, I ended up in Arkansas. And it was definitely a culture shock. So I lived on the cutoff where I was my dad lived on the last road where you can go to Cabot or to Jacksonville. And so to me, like, I'd gone to one football game. And Cabot's changed a lot since then. But back then they had one guy on the team that was black, and I was like, this ain't my place, because I grew up in Miami, where as a youth, my nickname was White Ghost, and I don't know why they didn't just go with Ghost, but it was White Ghost. Where I was the only white kid on the whole football field. Like, it wasn't just on the team. I got like out on the whole field, and the next game's coming up, like I was the only white kid. And so to me, Jacksonville just felt like a better fit to me.
Yeah.
And looking back, it's because it's kind of where God had his journey for me. And so a bit of a culture shock. I went from living in a town where you didn't really need a jacket to moving here in December, and I was like, it's kind of cold, but I've adapted.
Yeah.
I'm a shorts and winter kind of guy.
Yeah. Man, so you're playing football. At that point, you get introduced to this mentor of yours, you said. At what point did you feel that football was something you wanted to play at the next level? Was that an aspiration from a young age? And when do you really feel like you were like, okay, I'm going to go for this and shoot for it? Because to be a walk-on, I walked on, played a year of college athletics too. It's like you're just kind of, it's a shot in the dark, essentially, of like, I know what I'm capable of, but do I really know what I'm capable of? When was that moment for you, or time where you were like, okay, I really want to take the next step and commit to this for a time?
Yeah. I think playing football at the next level was kind of always the goal. Like, I didn't struggle with like drugs and stuff like that and alcohol, because to me it wasn't worth the risk. And it wasn't because I was following Jesus. It wasn't worth the risk of jeopardizing what I wanted to do. My issue at the time, like, I played a position in kind of honestly kind of pigeonholed in a position because I was good at it. But I was undersized. And so to me, like, really what, like, looking if I would have been able to had my way, I would have played tight end versus I played guard. And
two very different positions.
Two very different positions. But I was in high school, I was 225, and so I wasn't very big as an O lineman, and so that's a little bit of like the walk on route journey is like I wasn't big enough to play at the time, and so I needed to grow and to mature, and so. But the goal, I think, always was like I wasn't awful at school, but I was good enough at school to make sure I was eligible and do okay. And so for me, that I think that's a little bit why like it's in the top 3 hardest things that I've ever done is because originally there was no plan B. Now I didn't think I was going to go to the NFL or anything like that. I think if you ask any person, they'd say, yeah, it's a dream to go professionally in whatever sport they're playing. But also like I'm not a dreamer. Like I'm a realistic. Like I have hope, but I'm not trying to reach far-fetched goals. And so I think that aspect of it was, yeah, college was always something that I wanted to do. And I think if you're not trying to make it to the next level, then you shouldn't try to play college. And so there was hope, but like it wasn't the main goal. To me, it was the next step. And so I was just doing the next thing in front of me.
Yeah. So you step on campus at UCA, you're playing football. You have this experience where you really feel like the Lord is speaking to you. What was the process in between that looking like for you of you quit football and you're transitioning into, okay, Lord, you told me that I need to refocus on you or focus on you to begin with. What did that look like for you? What was that process in the in-between time?
That was the fun time. It was I quit, and then honestly it was kind of like I went to school to play football. So then there was a season of my life where I was like, I have no idea what I want to do, and so I actually dropped out of school for a bit, mostly because I didn't want to waste my time pursuing something that I wasn't going to use, and looking back, that's kind of silly because I don't really use my degree. And so there was a season of like, okay, what do I want to do? And so for me, like ministry was a route that I felt like I was supposed to go. But I didn't feel like the release to leave UCA. And so that's kind of like the ministry that I ended up working with. I ended up doing, I went back to school and got my degree in history. And part of that was just to mend some family bridges. Like, and so I did that, and I was still involved in the ministry that I was plugged into. And then I went and I coached high school football. Like at that time, even while I was in school, I was volunteering and coaching. I did coach 4 years at Little Rock Christian, and then I went back to Jacksonville for a year. And like I loved it, like especially Jacksonville. I really love both of them, but like I love the ability to pour into kids and to impact their lives and to help them become better football players, but also in it to live life with them and be there and try to navigate through whatever they had going on. And so it was actually, I went to, like I said, still involved in this ministry, and my wife and I went to a winter conference. And leading up to that conference for over a week, like I couldn't sleep, which is not normal for me. If you ask my wife, like she has some bitterness towards me when we had our kids because I wouldn't wake up in the middle of the night. Even this morning, I got in a little trouble because my youngest kept coming downstairs last night, and she's like, "Did you hear him?" I'm like, "I didn't hear nothing." And so I have the gift of sleep once I go to sleep. But the problem was I couldn't, like that week I couldn't sleep. So I knew there was something in my spirit that wasn't right. Like, or that guy was trying to speak something to me.
Yeah.
And we go to this conference, and basically there was this internship that was available to where you can get credentials for ministry. And I felt like whenever the person was up front talking about it, I spoke, I was like, this is what I'm supposed to be doing. And so then that was kind of the next route for me. I did that, and then kind of was in ministry for, like I said, with that ministry for 13 years almost. And it was what I was supposed to be doing.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think ultimately, kind of full circle is now I get to do ministry in a community that that you get some people are like, oh yeah, I want that title or I want that position, and like it's never been about that. The reality of it is, there's a lot of people that would say, a collegiate football team, they're not really going to follow Jesus, or yeah, I don't know. You walk on campus and people be like, I don't know about that guy. When I walk into the locker room, when I walk in the facility, I'm like, man, this is where God's going to change the world.
Yeah.
And in that, it's like I have the opportunity to every day interact and impact 100+ people.
Yeah.
And so it's church. It's like I have a small congregation that I get to live life with every day, and it's pretty awesome.
Yeah. So you said 15 years you've been doing this, or 13?
Yeah, this will be 15 years
Okay.
as chaplain of the football team.
So 15 years doing this. Go back to the beginning of your time doing it. You step on. I mean, I've experienced. I had just a real brief experience when I was in Springfield, Missouri, helping out with some of the Missouri State football stuff. Like any level of Division I, I mean, you automatically it's just elevated in a way. You're taking road trips to go play the Florida States and bigger programs, but you also see a different level of probably commitment to the game in a way too, of athletes coming through the door. What was that like to start? Because I can imagine as you're getting involved and starting, it's a lot of just like building relationships, getting your foot in the door, starting those things from the ground up. What did that look like at the beginning of your time, and how do you feel like that has grown and developed over the years to where now it's like you are settled and actually, in a sense, like a part of the team?
Yeah.
What did that look like in that process?
Yeah, I think so. Kind of for me, the process was there were two coaches before this one. The first one I knew because I played for him, and so it was just like, hey, do you mind if I come to practice? And the hope of it was to kind of get guys into small group, and build connection. And so he came and left, and so new coach came in, and I knew that the previous coach didn't really travel a ton of guys all the time. New guy came in, and I went and introduced myself, told him this is what I am, this is what I'm doing, and I was like, I'm willing to travel if you would want me to, and his response was straightforward, and I think looking back, right, and his response was basically like, if you're reaching people, if you're impacting guys on the team, he's like, I don't have a problem putting you on the bus. But I think so. He's a little bit old school. I think he'd been around long enough to see guys come and try to get the title of chaplain, and then or try to be on the sidelines, and I think that's not a goal of mine. I think for me, it's like when I walk in, when I'm a part, like I want everybody to know Jesus. And so that was always my hope and my goal. So he watched me for a year, which I really respect. And I think it's kind of where I established core convictions of like this idea of ministry or presence. I think it really matters, like being around. And sometimes, some days it may not feel like it matters, but there's days after practice, they're like, Lodge, can I talk to you? Like, I got this going on. That if I'm not there, maybe it happens another day. Or if I'm there 3 times a week or a couple times a week or in and out, maybe it happens. I don't know because I haven't done it any other way. But I think it has opened up incredible opportunities and doors and conversations and walks of life with guys that really challenged me in the moment, and since then has been a conviction of mine.
Yeah.
And so he watched me for that year, and then he ended up putting me on the bus, and kind of ever since then I've been traveling. And so to me, really it seems cooler than it is, but there's a lot of late nights getting back on the weekends at 5 a.m. On a Sunday morning, and your kids don't sleep in, and so we're up to church. And so but I wouldn't change it for the world. Like, it's because the opportunity to stand in front of 100 people every weekend and share who Jesus is and what he's calling them to be is worth every minute of it. So.
Yeah, definitely. It takes a lot of sacrifice, especially I think about just even the landscape of college football right now. But for years, it's been, it's a commitment to play any sport, especially football. I mean, you're on campus basically year round, whether it's in season, prepping, preseason, or like spring ball. It all is just one large continuous wheel that they're running throughout the year. So there's so much opportunity to just get in there. I've seen that one of the football teams that I was spending time with this last year, it was kind of my first full year getting into it. Me and another local pastor were kind of running the show a little bit, and just asked if we could come in and meet with them once a week. But outside of that, we came to practices, and it's so cool to see how over time, like, you've been doing this for almost 15 years now, but even just the first year, you can see and notice a difference of as you show up and pursue those guys. Like, once they see that you're like legitimate and really care about them, they'll share things with you that they may not share with anyone else, because they genuinely know that you care and are there and available to do that. So that's so cool. That's like in some ways a dream for me. Like, I would love to be doing something similar to that, to just like get to invest in a group of guys year in and year out. And obviously, again, you probably see a lot of transition anymore with transfers and the portal and everything, but I'm sure there's definitely an appeal for some of them to continue to stay on board, to continue to grind it out, and just be a part of the culture that you're helping build there. So you talk about this trip that you got to go on as a player, and just experience that through your own lens and perspective. You got to do something similar this year with some of the guys from the football team. Would you mind just sharing a little bit about that and some of the impacts that came from that?
Yeah. So just even rewind a little bit on the transfer portal idea, and this applies even to that story. To me, like, you have two ways to look at it. You're like, oh man, woe is me. Like, I have to deal with this transfer portal. Like, even this year, we had 40 new guys come in January. And so with 40 new guys coming in, there's 40 leaving. But to me, it's just another opportunity to impact more people.
Yeah.
And so, like, even on this, so I took a trip. There were 7 guys, and one of them actually had just transferred. We lost him to Cincinnati. And so now he's kind of the second one that we lost in Cincinnati. The one before actually just got drafted to the Vikings.
Okay.
And honestly, and this last weekend, I was in Tennessee doing his wedding. And so to me, it's, and I told him this, and I actually said this in his wedding ceremony, that I was really sad when he left. But I was excited for the opportunity that he had. And the reason that I was sad is because we don't get to see each other every day anymore. And that's what I told him. I was like, doesn't mean that we won't stay connected. We won't continue to discipleship and that relationship.
Yeah.
But it will look different because we don't have the interaction every single day. And the same thing that I told the kid that left to Cincinnati this year, the same is true, right? But what discipleship does, when you live life with somebody every single day, like it creates a connection that is bonded greater than just relationship. And so we ended up kind of the full circle, this trip that I took. So the first time I went to Morocco was 23 years ago. And so I was able to bring 7 guys back to Morocco this May. And we were there, and the platform that we had was a football camp. And so it was kind of cool to see. I've done a lot of trips overseas, into different parts of the world, with different opportunities. But this was the first time that I was able to bring football guys. There's been one other football guy that's gone, or 2 other football guys that have gone on trips with me. But they were kind of incorporated into what I would call the normal student body trip. But this was the first all football trip. And really it was the first trip that was designed for them. And so I think what's happening a little bit, like if you go to Morocco, flag football is kind of like a niche community, but there is like some traction in it, and it's growing. And I think it's growing because of flag football and the Olympics. And so you got this thing that is being put in Olympic sports it's opening up platforms to places and communities that were not accessible originally. And so it was cool to see. To me, it's like one of the guys on the trip had really never been out of Conway other than for football. And you got a guy from Mississippi that's really only one of the guys that went on the trip had a passport. So all these other guys have never experienced like applying for a passport. They're like in trying to get overseas, let alone go overseas. And it's just different when like you can talk about it, but like really until you get out of your own culture, your own experience, and you kind of see the world around you. And you go into a place where we walk in a country where it's easy to be a Christian, into a country that it's not easy to be a Christian. And they know as soon as you land and touch foot on the airport that your passport says America, and they assume that you're a Christian. And so there's just the opportunity of growth and challenge, and I think just kingdom impact even in their lives of what they would do. So the guy that went to Cincinnati had a big influence on a couple of the guys that were on the trip. And so it was kind of a generational discipleship thing. So it wasn't an open trip to every football player or anybody that would be interested. Like it was a discipleship-based trip, that these guys were like really committed, had been committed, and trying to follow after Jesus. And so it was such a beautiful full circle opportunity for me, because that first trip was the first trip that I ever went on. And so then 23 years later, I'm able to do the first only football trip, and bring them to experience what I experienced. And it was incredible. Like some of the things that they were able to do, relationships that were made, and in the world today, unlike when I went for the first time, relationship can continue on because of the digital world we live in. And so, social media can be very dangerous, and I wrestle through it a little bit because I got an 11-year-old, and so but also it can be an incredible gift if we champion it the right way. And so just seeing how they're still connected to guys, and still in relationship, and still having conversation with guys that they met over there, and it's been pretty cool.
Yeah, that's so cool. I think just the intimacy of a trip like that, you think about not even the whole team, but just a select group of guys who've really been devoted to it. For them to be able to experience that together has to be so cool, especially for you having experienced that before, your own personal perspective in that as a player, then getting to see other players get to experience that. How cool. And how cool of the Lord to just work that out for you to be able to do that. As you were talking, I was the thought kind of sparked in my head of players leading other players. How have you seen that be a part of your time as team chaplain? Like, I see that all the time. When players lead, they're the most effective leaders on the team. Even when coaches lead, they're some of the most effective leaders on the team. How do you pursue ministry in the context you're in terms of trying to engage players to lead players, coaches to lead coaches in their faith? What does that look like for you? How have you seen that over your time with the UCA football team? What's your strategy in some of that?
Strategy is discipleship.
Yeah.
Like there's no pretty clear-cut answer. Like it's, you live life with guys, and I'm a firm believer of what you're saying. I think peer leadership is the best leadership.
Yeah.
I think if you want to have a successful athletics team, is to find leaders within that group and allow them to lead. And so if not, you can have a strong coach, and he can say and do whatever, but ultimately it's up to kind of the core nucleus. And so on teams, you can decide what that is as the head coach because you're running the program. But when you're talking about kind of my role and my responsibility is along the spiritual side of it, is like there's a lot of stuff. And I tell guys this kind of a select group of like leaders of like, I can go and get somebody to come to small group of some sort, or we call it D group, discipleship group. We can get them to come to D group, and I can convince them of that. But ultimately, what is going to allow them to really get connected is you. Like, if you bring them, if you challenge them, if you walk alongside them, to be able to come. Because look, we don't in Conway, we don't, like you say, we don't have a service. Well, basically, we have multiple teams that have small groups on them, and so like, and before like I came on staff with FCA, like we tried to do a service, and this was before like FCA was, before Webb was even there. And honestly, I had more guys come to small group than I had come to campus wide service, and so the reality of it is there's a lot of good churches within Conway, and so I'm not trying to build a church. I'm trying to serve the local church. And to me, it's like, and I'm trying to partner with the local church to this community.
Yeah.
And so ultimately it's, I live life with guys, right? And guys that, and I tell them, I even tell this on the recruiting trip, when their parents are there and everything, as much as you'll let me be a part of your life, I'll be a part of your life. And as much as you want to be a part of my life's wide open for you to be a part of it. Mm-hmm. And the ones that really grasp that are the ones that are on the faith journey, or at least ones that are serious about it. And as we continue to walk through that, now there's guys I try to fight my way into and push my way into their lives. But the ones that are like ready to lead are the ones that actually accept that challenge. And so ultimately what it looks like is I live life with those guys and I challenge them to go live life with other guys. And so the guy that transferred to Cincinnati was real about his faith, and he was real about other guys knowing Jesus, right? Yeah. And I think Jesus sums it up pretty simple. And the two greatest commandments is to love the Lord God with all your heart, soul, and mind, and to love your neighbor as yourself. And I think if we do that, discipleship happens, right? Because we start thinking about other people's needs more than we do ours. And we think about, man, I want them to know Jesus like I know Jesus, right? And so it's like, if we take care of that first one, it's not first, it's like 1A and 1B. It's not 1 and 2. It's like they're kind of incorporated into each other. And so the goal that Jesus established for the church is discipleship. Right? He had 12 guys and he lost one of them. So then that, to me, like I just try to go recreate what I see Jesus do. I try to live my life with guys. And I called them, like Jesus called them, to be more. And how do they be more? By following after him, and then go tell other people about him. Yeah. And so I'm not, there's no formula or model other than Jesus model. And so with that, like guys that are willing, and when I mean willing, a lot of people say, yeah, well, but the guys that really are walking it out, I just challenge them to get their eyes up and see the guys around them, see the guys in the locker room. And I think a big part of that trip this summer was a revelation of that for those guys. I went to bed because I'm old, they're young, but they stayed up to one night to like 4 a.m. and they were praying. And I felt like when the testimony that they were sharing me, what happened was like God was getting a hold of their lives. The Holy Spirit was speaking to them, challenging them, and encouraging them to walk their faith out for real. And so now we're in the process of coming home and not becoming complacent, which happens, and trying to implement that into daily walks of life, both for me and for them.
Yeah. You talk about like structure, and I think sometimes we can overcomplicate things and make it to where it's like, well, I have to build this and I have to build that. Like, no. Something I learned really early on with FCA was the ministry of presence, like you're talking about. It sounds so simple, but it is so simple. Like show up and just be relational with people, because authenticity can only come from a place that's authentic. And like, that sounds super simple, but it's true that if we show up on campuses, if you show up on campus in the locker room and are like trying to do this and do that, that's so out of the norm or the culture that's already being built, it's going to be super hard because there's going to be conflicting opinions and thoughts and that. But if you just step alongside what's already happening and just remain present through that, guys are inevitably going to face things that are hard. Yeah. That's what we talk about on this podcast all the time. Pain is the equalizer for everyone. Everyone experiences some kind of pain. For some people, it's different than others. Like your testimony and story, I'm sure you've shared that many a times with guys who have faced similar things, who haven't faced similar things, just to share like, man, like this is what I've been through. This is what God's done in my life. This is what he can do in your life too. But how cool, as the Lord, it sounds like, really prepared you for this time and this season of life. How cool is it just to kind of see that come full circle to what you're doing now? Because I have no doubt that's how the Lord moves and operates. As you didn't even know that this would be what you're doing in the future. Like thinking probably, I have no idea, but I could tell you it's probably not going to be that. Like if you had it listed out in front of you, but that's just the way the Lord operates. As we kind of close out our time, we got about 10 minutes or so. Is there, this is just on the fun side of things, because I love talking college football. This is my personal opinion, but college football is like the mecca of sports, in my opinion. Now, we were just talking about the World Cup before we got started, and the World Cup is great. Like the World Cup is like the mecca of the world, but college football feels like, to me, like the mecca of sports in the United States. Is there a time or experience? Because like you really got to love football to do what you're doing too, and just enjoy the game. Was there a time or a trip or a place you've been able to go to that you look back and was like, man, that's really cool that we got to travel there, or we got to experience this? We talked a little about that at FCA camp, but is there anything that comes to mind? I mean, you said you're going to Florida State coming up, but has there been a stadium? Has there been a crowd, a game where you're like, man, this was really, really cool?
So probably the coolest college stadium like experience that I've been to, honestly, is not a massive Division I school. It would be North Dakota State, and the Fargo Dome. That place gets the rocking. We went and played Ole Miss a couple years ago, and it was raining, so I don't think it was as loud or as hopping as it could have been. That was a game that Lane Kiffin decided Jackson Dart was going to be his quarterback, and let them keep on slinging in the second half. And so that was a miserable game to be a part of. Other than that, Kansas State was pretty cool because Snyder was still coaching. And so just being on the field with the legend like that in the college world was pretty cool. Florida State will be cool, mostly because like I know coaches on the other side. Like I was at UCA when Norvo was there, and then growing up a Miami guy, it's easy to go in as an opponent and want to beat them.
Sure.
So that was cool. I think the probably coolest football experience I've had actually was going to a couple years ago. We were able to go. The guy that I discipled came through UCA. Was actually playing with the Packers, and he got his tickets. And so we're at Lambeau in December on a Monday night, which was freezing cold, but we're on the 40-yard line front row, like right behind the defense. And so that was cool just to see. It's cool to see where, guys' hopes and dreams they come true. And then they in turn love you enough to let you be a part of it still. And so like for us, like it's when we talk about, we don't have a lot of free time in the fall because of football, but now we're trying to figure out like where do we go spend it, like with what guy that we've invested in and discipled, and be able to go see him play on the Sunday. And so for me, like even in it, like I've never been super connected to Sunday football, but I find myself more and more outside of like UCA being connected on Sundays. And so, but yeah, I think there's cool atmospheres that would be cool to be in. But ultimately it's not necessarily about that. The best games are the ones that you win. So, but there's been some cool experiences through the game of football, and in it, to me, the other cool part of it is now my kids get to go too at times. And so especially if it's a close enough game, like they can drive to, like they get to go experience the stadiums. They get to go to Mizzou last year and be out there pregame and stuff like that. So that part's cool. Being able to raise your kids in an atmosphere around football, which makes it harder to keep your kids out of football. But they, like even on Wednesday nights, my son is in the struggle of like, he's transitioned to be old enough to go to youth group now at church. And so we're trying to get him to go to youth group, but then I also do D group on Wednesdays. And he's like, I'm supposed to be at D group. And it's like, no, you're not. You're actually probably supposed to go to youth group. But like, there's this thing inside of him of like this, like he sees the value in it. And he sees the value of being plugged into that community. And he's around the knuckleheads on the team, but then also gets the opportunity to be around the guys that are like trying to figure this thing out and follow after Jesus. And so, I think that's the cool part of like, if there's any experience or stadium or whatever, like it's being able to include my family in the journey, and watch my 11-year-old son go up to Jordan Love and ask him for an autograph, scared out of his mind to do it. Like that part's cool.
Did he get the autograph?
He did. Okay. He wasn't supposed to, but he got it. He got yelled at after by the PR media lady, and I was just like, sorry.
He's a kid. What do you expect?
I was like, if my thought on it was like, if he's got the guts to go up to one of the faces in the NFL, then
go for it, man.
Go for it. And he was scared to death, but like he found the courage and the boldness to go.
That's
do
awesome,
it,
man.
So I was like, I'll take the tongue lashing from you. It's fine.
Yeah, that's cool. You kind of mentioned it at the beginning, and it was one of the first things you said, but just perspective in general. Like the stadiums are cool, the atmosphere is cool, but it's not about that at the end of the day.
Correct.
It's about getting these guys to develop a relationship with Jesus and grow closer and closer, more intimately with him every single day. And when that's the eternal perspective and mindset, success looks a whole lot different. I was just speaking, I've gotten the opportunity, and we talked about it on a previous episode with Mr. Lance Kaufman, but to get to invest in some of the Arkansas Travelers players over the last year and a half for me. And it's been so humbling in a lot of ways, because for me growing up as a kid, I look at these professional athletes or even just high level athletes and think to myself, wow, like that has to be so cool. Mm-hmm. Like that has to be like, that's my dream. That's what everyone says. And getting to talk with these guys, getting to like boots on the ground, really build relationships, you kind of forget just the human aspect of it, of like, they were once in the same shoes that we are in some regard, because they're also a part of the human experience. Yeah. They feel they're really good at a sport. Other than that, life is not like elevated for them in any way. They face similar things. And that was something that really challenged me in my heart, because we almost elevate, even like you talk about Jordan Love, like same thing for him. Like he's been successful in the game of football, but like who knows what is going on in his life and what kind of support that he needs in his life too. So just for anyone listening, I just want to challenge you in that when you think about some of these athletes and their perspective and understanding, like they are also human. Yeah. And because the media can elevate that and do all these things, we get those things out of alignment and out of our perspective. But just felt like to share that, because I think we elevate and do things. So it's so cool what you get to do. And so glad that we had the opportunity to talk to you today. So thanks for being on, man. Appreciate you telling your story, and hopefully anyone who's listening to this will be impacted and encouraged by that. So thank you for being on, and thank you for listening. We will be back at it again next week. Thank you for joining us on this episode of Beyond the Huddle, the Central Arkansas FCA podcast where faith meets competition. See you next week.